Hot cake, out of the 4 or technically 5 prime assets we now have, Otto and Aurora might smell the best. Not that I'm super eager to go up and take a massive sniff, it's just that they have no obvious reason to smell really dreadful, at least not in comparison to the other primes. And this conclusion I reached even after I tried my hardest to be as uncharitable as possible towards them. Otto is borderline morbidly obese that might create a lot of fat folds and flaps that he might not wash beneath all the time, that could produce a foul scent. Or similarly, because of the conjoined nature of Otto and Aurora both, they might have difficulty washing in places that are difficult to reach, except if you've read the comics, you know that these two have quite the reach, and they put this to good use. And I wish I didn't read the comics. They're also old. They're probably the oldest people in the trial environments. Being old actually produces a distinct smell chemically, that's why there's this well-known old person smell, which could be a good or bad thing. It's good if the old person smell is something you don't mind, or even like, because then it could mask what other malodorous offenses they have created. It's bad if you're dreaming of red mansions. I don't know why this line came up. Why did she say this? Also, I thought of talking about this in a different video, but I will bring it up here. Aurora has her redacted out on full display. It is situated directly on the side of Otto's neck. It is exposed. I will leave it up to the reader to decide whether or not this produces any detectable odor. But yes, all these factors combined make up the worst possible scent Otto and Aurora are likely to have. And compared to the other prime assets, this isn't even that bad. Really. Like, they might be super musty, but no more so than any random stranger you're likely to walk past at a gaming convention. Now you compare this to the big 3. Gooseberry wears rotten flesh on her face. Maybe she changes the flesh mask every day or so, but that doesn't make it any better. I also get the sense that she sweats profusely, especially as she's chasing us, and I think the body odor must become soon unbearable. Am I being uncharitable? By the way, the Futterman drill is a prosthetic. I don't know how many people know this, but if it's attached to the stump of her right arm, I can imagine the buildup of stump sweat could get really bad. I don't know how easily she can remove the Futterman drill, or if she does, I wouldn't be surprised if she keeps it on 24/7. Anyways, the combination of friction and sweat, it must be horrible. I'm gonna gag thinking about it. There are other reasons I think she must smell even worse than this, but for that I will have to talk about her trials environments, and I'm putting that on hold for now. Franco has had his bad hygiene exposed by the prostitutes he patronized. And look at him. I've said this before, but look at him. Concept art by Hugo Richard. He's covered in stains. Wash thyself! I know he smells of sour milk and worse. Maybe the gunpowder will mask some of his stench? I don't think so. Infants are not notorious for their ability to bathe themselves. Franco has probably gone willingly unwashed for years. Of this, I am disinclined to speak further. Coyle is known to reek of burnt flesh. This is obvious. He electrocutes all his victims. The stench is in the air. It's probably in his hair. He zaps himself for pleasure, probably to the point where you can smell him burning. We have testimony from Franco himself, and if Franco's complaining,
"That thing smells like a dead man's cooked cock."
Well, hold. I should say this of every single enemy in the game, but I believe this to be particularly true of Coyle, Franco, and the big grunts. These guys are probably covered head to toe in copious amounts of certain bodily fluids. Lots of it weeks old, and long dried, and crusty. And this should contribute greatly to the considerable reek. I'm very sorry, but it has to be said, or you won't imagine anything nearly as bad as it really is. And even still, I have a hard time imagining. In Biology 12, we dissected the digestive tracts of pigs. No exaggeration, I am fortunate enough to never have smelled anything nearly so bad in all my 20 plus years of life. Nothing comes close, nothing. We had to rub our philtrums with Vaseline to block out the smell, it barely worked, and our teacher warned us, please do not puncture the intestines because the smell will get 10 times worse. And I was thinking to myself, how could it get worse than it already is? This I could not begin to fathom. The trials environments must smell just as bad, but probably worse than my Biology 12 classroom that day, because in the trials, there are hanging entrails everywhere. There's rotting corpses, and burnt corpses, and puddles of blood and vomit, and all kinds of caked up excrement everywhere you look. Reagents and expop alike are probably relieving themselves mid-trial. I know Doris is canonically making 80% of her profits, selling some kind of nose blindness amp. That thing's got to go for a premium in the sleep room. You know the Outlast games would not be nearly as popular as they are if you had to experience them with more than 2 senses. So yeah, I wanted to talk about the trials environments. Which ones smell the worst? Open up right here, it's poison the medicine, or just the docks in general. This one smells the worst of all. There is so much rotting fish and squid. Franco is keeping people in cages, milking people. This is contributing to the density of unwashed bodies in the trial, which is something that grosses me out basically more than anything else. And then there's the water in the docks. Where do you think Murkoff got all this water in the middle of the Arizona desert, by the way? All I will say is that it is most probably not safe to drink. Generally, I believe Franco trials smell very bad for this reason. Just the keeping people in cages part. It's not shown in-game, but you know they're sitting in piles of their own bodily waste. Gooseberry also has caged reagents. The barn? Oh my god, the barn. You know the hell hallway? The one where she uses corpses for wallpaper? That one is absolutely ghastly. It's incredible. It truly feels like Outlast 2 in the best and worst of ways. Coyle's trials. I said it before, his trials may smell marginally better because, I don't know, does burnt flesh smell better than rotting or unwashed flesh? Maybe. Anyway, it occurred to me that when terrible smells get overpowering and overwhelming enough, the human brain, the olfactory system, actually interprets it as smelling sickly sweet because we don't know how to process this unbearable assault on our sense of smell. Maybe all the trial environments in the game are just washed by this sickly sweet scent. So this supports the first point I made in this video. Maybe. Otto and Aurora, the shopping mall, it doesn't really have that many rotting, burnt, or caged reagents. There's a standard amount of dead fellows lying around, but what can you do about that? So maybe it doesn't smell that bad. Maybe it's possible Aurora's crest precursor stinks really terribly, but wouldn't Otto then complain? To my knowledge, he has not. Actually, he has a voice line where he admits he likes its aroma. Are we to trust his sense of smell? Who knows? On the topic of crest precursor, I wonder what the other gases in the game smell like. Psychosis gas? Toxic shock gas? MIVIM, which is now a thing in Communal Rebirth? You might be quick to assume that if something is chemically harmful to us, our brains would have evolved so that we interpret all these harmful substances as smelling bad, as a warning, but that's not always the case. The very lethal carbon monoxide notoriously smells of nothing. We humans had to add the rotten egg smell to it so we know when there's a gas leak. So I don't know. We don't know. Toxic shock gas makes us gag and bleed from our every orifice, but maybe it smells like roses. Back on topic. The prime assets stink. No surprise. And yet, we know they are in a much more privileged position compared to the grunts who serve them. We know the prime assets speak directly to Eastermen from time to time. We know they are fairly highly valued. They must get some kind of special treatment. Do they eat well? Do they have their own rooms? Are they bathed regularly? This I would like to know, because maybe then they wouldn't smell as bad. As bad, big asterisk. The train of logic then goes, well, if the grunts and other expop are being treated less favorably than the primes, then they must smell worse. I can see this. Oh, I can totally see this. I believe the hard grunts must smell worst of all. All that thick armor covering them, the headgear, sweating in all that gear all day, they probably never get a chance to bathe. They probably never get a chance to take off any of their clothes. Murkoff has so many weird metal implants stuck inside these guys, I don't know if they can take anything off ever. Maybe everything is strapped down onto them. But like, just imagine the sound of their clothes peeling off their sweaty, grimy skin. You could probably see the steam rising. I'm gonna gag, guys. Okay. I'm afraid, because my problem is, I might be getting a little too decent with descriptive language. You may be watching this, and you may begin to suspect I'm catering towards a certain audience with certain special interests. This is not the case. This is about the Outlast trials. It's a necessary conversation to have. I mean, you can accuse me of anything. The truth will always prevail. Anyway, the hard grunts. You can probably smell them from 3 whole rooms away, I'm not lying. You can probably listen for the EIG alarm, take a sniff, and know if it was one of them who left it. Big grunts, same case, because they got the excretions thing going on. This is literally part of their lore, I'm not making it up, I'm just extrapolating. This tier list from Reddit is really nice, because there's parts I agree with and parts I heavily disagree with. We know where I stand on Coyle. No way he smells almost passable. You are at once discredited completely. The smell of cigarettes is covering up nothing, it only makes them smell worse. Cigarettes do not smell good, unless like your parents or grandparents smoked and the smell is nostalgic for you or whatever. Another hot cake, Pusher might in fact, and contrary to all other evidence, smell relatively okay. We know he's retained some of his sanity as well as a lot of his awareness about what the trials actually are and what Murkoff is doing. He just likes to do a little huffing and puffing, that's all it is. So maybe, because of his role as a former Murkoff employee, he has kept some of his old privileges. Maybe he gets a nice bath every now and then. Maybe those who were once his coworkers feel some kind of pity for him, knowing who he once was, and they toss him a soapy sponge as he's passing through the evaluation corridor. It could happen, we don't know. I hate to say it, but the Jaeger must reek. Sorry, Henrietta. I really am hoping Murkoff gives her daily baths. She deserves it. Or maybe all the metal makes it hard. Is it non-rust metal? Maybe not. Sorry, Henrietta, no baths for you. But she looks so huggable. Do you know, how can she look huggable if she's actually super musty in reality? Today, in my headcanon, I will be warping reality to fit the narrative I have constructed. Speaking of, everybody wants to know what we, the reagents, smell like. Some people just assume we smell as bad as the expop, just so like, because Murkoff is mean, and they want us to do that, but no, this is not true. Listen. There is soap and shampoo in our sleep room cells. Our reagents must practice some form of passable hygiene, somehow, somewhere. I refuse to believe otherwise. Red Barrels just, they couldn't be bothered to put toilets and showers in the sleep room because that would take up too much space for something that doesn't have an actual in-game function. But we reagents keep clean. Very clean. This is my belief. I accept no other alternatives. I had a coworker randomly tell me, just completely unprompted, that I smell like peaches. That became a canon event, I think about that often. Because it's also a terrible omen, and I think it is plausible that I am, piece by piece, bringing about my own demise. Guys, what's going on? Density of unwashed bodies. I wanted to talk more about this, DOUB. We have custom trials nowadays. I think we reagents can actually control how bad the trials smell. Because if you throw in variators, like high enemy density, increased threat, more pushers, prime time, so on and so on, you are increasing the DOUB in the trial. You are making the trial smell worse because there are more stinking enemies. On the same side of that coin, if you play on introductory, or you have the low enemy density variator on, the trial may smell a little bit less horrible. So, hey, thanks for watching. It was a weird video to make, but I hope you enjoyed.
Gargle.